What are some tips for creating a successful business plan? By the end of this video, you're going to take the concept of business plan, which is frankly boring, and turn it into something that's going to be incredibly valuable for you. Some of you are working harder than ever, giving increased effort, seeing decreased results, and you're going, I don't think this chaos is worth it. That feeling that you feel, it's not a motivation problem. It's actually a clarity problem. And what I'm going to talk to you about business planning, I think will help solve some of that. So you searched, what is a business plan, or how can I create this successful business plan? I think we need to start with, what is a business plan? Because I could line 10 people up and ask, hey, what's a business plan? And I'm probably going to get 20 different responses because everybody's going to second guess themselves. And so as we're thinking about this idea of business planning, let's first ask, and I want to ask you a question in return, what are you trying to cause? It's a dear friend of mine, he would ask me that all the time when I'm in a sticky situation. He goes, hey, what do you want to cause by your next step? And so with this idea of business planning, I need to ask you, what do you want to cause? What's the goal? What's the outcome that you're looking for? For some of you, it's like, I got to get a loan and the bank's requiring me to submit a business plan. Or for others of you, it's, I'm unclear as to where we're going right now and I need to find clarity on what we're doing. There might be some of you that are somewhere in between, but the reality is you need to define the purpose of what this plan is going to do in the first place before we ever talk about how to actually build a successful business plan. Now, let me give you my years of experience and where I think this would be helpful for you around this idea of business planning. In short, regardless of what you want this thing to cause, let me tell you what a business plan is intended to do. It's really to be a turn-by-turn GPS map from point to point. So wherever you're at right now, you could be in the town of stuck, or the town of frustrated, or the town of chaos, and you want to go to the big city of clarity, or wherever that might be down the road. You want turn-by-turn directions on how to get there. Why? It's because you and the people who are riding with you want to have confidence on where you're going. So if you've got a bank riding with you that's giving you money, they want to have confidence on where you're going. If you've got friends who are jumping in with you in order to run this organization, they want to have clarity on where you're going and what they're investing their money, their life, their resources in as they go. So I want you to think of a business plan, and a successful business plan, as a turn-by-turn direction. Too many of us use business plan as just a visual snapshot of where we're going. Hey, I'm going to Seattle. I'm going to Boise. I'm going to Bangalore, wherever it might be. No. That's not what we're focused on. That's a strategic plan and a vision story. In fact, I've got another video that I think would be very helpful for you to understand that long-term strategic plan. But a business plan is this step-by-step, turn-by-turn direction of where we're headed to get to that ultimate vision. So the purpose of this business plan is really going to do one thing, and that's clarity over everything else. That's what we want to be able to offer. You know, it's funny, as we're talking to business owners in a variety of different industries, we'll ask them all the time, hey, what's a big headache that you're experiencing right now? And usually it boils down to two major elements. Is they'll give us some response that comes in the category of people, that's my biggest headache, or they'll give us a variety of responses that fall into the category of money. That's the other big thing that we hear about over and over and over again. Well, what we've found is that it's usually not an issue of people or an issue of money. Usually what it is an issue of a lack of clarity around people or a lack of clarity around money. And so what a successful business plan is intended to do is give you turn-by-turn clarity on what that looks like. And so I want to break this down into 4 categories that I think will be very, very helpful. And then there will be 4 subcategories off of that. All right, you ready? So the 4 major categories to think through business planning, if you get a sheet of paper out, you can literally do this on a scratch sheet of paper, is I want you to write out 4 P's: purpose, people, process, and profit. And then under the process, I want you to write out 4 systems: marketing, sales, operations, and administration and accounting. So if we've got those 4 categories and we just start to work down and ask ourselves, what's the purpose of doing what we're doing? And so if you wanted to break purpose down in that first of the 4 P categories, you can break it down into vision, mission, values. Vision is a detailed snapshot of the future of your business. Mission is why are we going there in the first place? And the values are the curbs along the side of the road to help you make decisions along the way. In fact, I just had a client last week make a $12 million municipal contract decision based on their core values. And you know what happened? They lost the job. They made a strategic decision based on their values to up the pricing because of the margins and the various things in the job. And they thought in their mind, if they don't choose us, then this is not a job we're supposed to have. And so they made a $12 million decision and they didn't get the job. That was a $12 million core value. And so that's what I mean by leveraging those core values. So if we're in that purpose element, those first of the 4 Ps, think vision, mission, values. Then we get to the people side of things, and that the second P of those 4 P's, purpose, people, process, and profit. So when we're in people, I want you to think organizational structure, job roles, and goals. And so when we think about those sorts of things, what does your organizational structure need to look like in order to deliver that vision that you wrote under the purpose? What do the job roles need to look like that you're asking each one of those steps of the organizational structure to do? And then what are the goals that are going to keep those job roles on task? Now you can also add scorecards in there, super simple to do. If you just take the job role, run it through AI and go, hey, give me a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, and annual task checklist. It'll spit one out for you so that that team member has abundant clarity on what they're being asked to do daily, weekly, monthly, etc. Now the third of those P's is the process P. Now remember I had you put 4 other subcategories under there: marketing, sales, operations, and administration and accounting. And so when we're putting a business plan together, I want you to think through each one of those 4 system verticals. Now the marketing vertical is how we're going to outreach to people. If I were to put it in another vernacular, it'd be this way. In marketing, we're dating people, right? Now it's a little awkward because it's multiple people and you probably shouldn't do that in real life, but you get the point in the metaphor. So we're going to date and kind of casually get to know other people through the marketing effort. Sales is where we have made a decision as provider and potential client to walk down the aisle and sort of get married. We call it a contract or some sort of sense of engagement, payment, whatever it might be. And so now we're married at the altar of sales, but we were dating at the time of marketing. And so once we got married at the altar of sales, now we move into life. What's that called? Operations and administration. That's where we're doing the daily life every single day. We're living life together. We're mowing the grass, changing the diapers, changing the light bulb, paying the bills, and all of that stuff. And so I want you to think strategically through marketing, sales, operations, and administration. Begin to write down all the things that you want to do to outreach to people, how you want to go about converting them into clients, how you want to fulfill your promise in the operations vertical of what you're going to deliver in a product or service, and then how you're going to account and administer all of that. So you just start to write out some thoughts, and that will help you gain clarity around the successful business plan that you're going to put together. And then our 4th P, and that's profit. So we have purpose, people, process, and profit. The profit is where we're going to take things and begin to subdivide our cash accounts. So literally we're going to create, instead of 1, 2, or 3 bank accounts, we want to create 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Lest you think you have too many, I have one client that has 52. So you're nowhere close, all right? And so when we start taking each dollar that comes into the business and subdividing that dollar up and putting it into an individual home, not on a spreadsheet, but in actual bank accounts, now our mind starts to see how much money we really have to divert to those other areas, rather than just looking at it all in one bucket. Think of it like this. I love movie popcorn. And when I go to the movies, I get the big bucket. You know, the bucket's so big that they offer refills because they know there's no possible way you can eat it. Well, guess who does? This guy. And so I layer it with butter. I do all these things. Well, if I eat that whole bucket, you're probably not going to make fun of me because I just ate a bucket of popcorn. But if I had 8 smaller buckets, and I took that amount in the big bucket and I subdivided it into these smaller buckets. If I ate all 8 of those buckets, you'd make fun of me, even though it's the same exact amount that's in the big bucket. And not to mention, if popcorn falls out of the big bucket, I'm not going to pick it up. That's gross. But if popcorn falls out of the small bucket, I'm going to pick it up because I got the 5-second rule and there's not that much popcorn in that tiny little bucket. That's the same with our money. When it's all lumped in one big bucket, it kind of leaks and falls out and we think it's all our money and it's not. Some of it has to go to pay taxes and cost of goods and all of these other things. But when we subdivide that cash into smaller buckets, now all of a sudden we start to feel this kind of sense of, ooh, I need to watch what I'm spending here. So when we get to that profit vertical, we need to think through subdividing our cash. That will actually fuel everything else of those other 3 Ps that we talked about. So think of your profit vertical as the gasoline, the fuel to be able to drive your purpose, your people, and your process. Here's what you're doing as you're walking through these categories, those 4 Ps and then the 4 subcategories of the systems, marketing, sales, ops, admin, is you're building clarity, not only for your team, but for yourself. Because too many times as the owner of an organization, we wake up on Monday and we go, we're going this way. And then we wake up on Tuesday and go, no, we're going this way. We wake up on Wednesday. That does not mean we shouldn't innovate. Of course we should innovate. But the innovation all needs to be aligned in that direction over there. But if we don't have that direction written down, then it doesn't exist. Michael Gerber said this way back about 30 years ago. He said, if you don't write it down, you don't own it. And what makes the most successful business plan is not the structure, not the length, not the duration. It's the fact, number one, that you have it written down. And then number two, that it's got clarity. And so use those categories that I gave you: purpose, people, process, and profit, with those little subdivisions: vision, mission, values, and purpose. Org structure, job roles, quarterly goals in the people, marketing, sales, ops, and admin in the process, and then the subdivided bank accounts in your profit. And once you've got those in place, you can start to really map that out to be able to see what clarity looks like. I saw this recently done in a workshop that a friend of mine was in, and he relayed this to me. And it was this exercise called Build a Duck. And each one of them got a Ziploc bag, and in the Ziploc bag, there were multiple Lego bricks in that Ziploc bag. And they gave it to the 20 people in the room, and they said, hey, build a duck. And so all of the 20 grown adults built a duck. And every single one of them came up, and it took them about 2 minutes to do, and they put it on the table. Not one duck out of 20 people was the same. And then the facilitator of the room gave an instruction sheet with pictures and steps 1 through 6 on how to build a duck. He gave all their ducks back, made them break them apart, and instead of giving them 2 minutes to build the duck, he gave them 45 seconds. And in 45 seconds, not only were they able to build their duck, but every single duck was just alike. Why? It's because they had clarity. Once you get it written down, now everybody can build the duck the way you want them to build the duck. We've loaded over a decade's worth of experience, and I've got another video that I think is going to be incredibly meaningful and helpful for you to watch. It's linked in the descriptions below, so make sure you go check that out. My name's Scott Beebe. We work with business owners between 3 and 100 employees so that you can be liberated from chaos to make time for the things that matter most.